To Walford United WFC. Hello, welcome to Walford United with me, John Foster, MUFC. Sorry we are a few minutes late, but we're here now. That's the main thing. Charlie's laughing, setting me up here for a fail. At least we're smiling as much as we can be. Smiling more than it was 24 hours ago, at least. Aston Villa 0, Man United 0. We said we've been saying for the past 2 or 3 weeks how we're going to get these goals. You know, Tooney hasn't really been chipping in this year. If we've soldiered a score, not many others go in. We know that we needed 4 or 5 goals, and we ended up not even getting one. So we're going to dissect it, and we've got to go through it. Let's just say hello to everybody first. Ellie, how you doing, mate? You okay?
Hi, I'm all right. Thank you for having me on again.
No problem. And Charlie, good to see you back, mate. How are you?
I'm really good, yeah. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Good, Connor. Good to see you, mate. You okay?
Yes, all good. After your little technical hiccup a second
yes,
ago.
It was all my fault. Wasn't it, Charlie? All my fault. Loads of people in the comments. Thank you. We will put a few comments on screen as well. I can see Vincent in the comments as well. I think Vince was standing by us, but I didn't know until I got back home and I saw the pictures. I wasn't too sure if it was you or not. So, Vince, if you were standing next to us yesterday, I do apologise. And also, was it you that had the flag, the Brummy flag? If it is, then I know who you are now. So, apologies there, Vince, if that was it. If it wasn't you, I just made to feel late for myself. We're going to get into the game then. So, kind of start us off then. Just what's your opening assessment or opening statement of that game?
I'll keep it brief because there's so many specifics I want to go into. But I think Andy Slater said it perfectly on Twitter. That just sums up our season. I think in that game, it's another game. We had a lot of chances. You know, I don't agree with this. We played bad. We didn't. We had chances enough to win it. And I think any other side score those. And the issue I've had with us recently, saw it in the Brighton game when Ella Toon had a chance early on. It seems like if we don't score early, we make it really hard for ourselves across a full 90 minutes. We've seen that across the season. And, you know, we have that chance early on. We score that. It's a completely different game. And I think we go on to win 3 or 4. But we don't. The pressure builds. And we were just saying backstage, you know, you could feel it in the crowd. The atmosphere was so good. That's the best away end I think I've been in, certainly this season. It was really bouncing there, but you could feel the nerves towards the end. The last kind of 15, 20 minutes, we were just saying it almost went silent for a few minutes. And it just, you could tell the players felt the pressure. The last 10 minutes, it was just, they were panicking. Everything was hitting long and that was kind of working. We had a couple of opportunities of it. Obviously, Martha Thomas had the best of those, but yeah, it just got very frantic and panicky towards the end. And I said on Friday, that this is the first time we've dropped behind City. Now we're the chasing team almost going into this game. We were. How would we deal with that? We dealt with it quite well early on, but you could tell the pressure was getting to the players towards the end. And it's just a little bit of belief towards the end. But yeah, it just sums up our season, I think.
There's plenty of comments to get into. We will talk about that on Norman separately because that's obviously a massive talking point. And Connie, you mentioned about the long balls. We'll talk about that as well because it was definitely things that we were saying in the crowd and what was being said in the last 24 hours on Twitter. So we'll get into that as well. Charlie, don't forget to unmute yourself. I know that you might have difficulty, things like that. Go on, what's your opening thoughts, Charlie?
I thought the first 10 minutes or so were really promising, actually, in how we'd set up, sort of ball to feet, quick passing, 1-2 touch, and we had a couple of chances that were we should have scored from, really. But with the start we had, it looked really promising, and then it sort of just felt like we hit that. I think we've said before that if we don't score early, we struggle, and if we're aware of that, I imagine everyone involved in the team is aware of that. And then it just felt like because even though we were playing really well the first 10, 15 minutes, because we didn't score from that, it just seemed the whole game plan seemed to change, whether that came from the bench or from the players themselves. It all of a sudden just turned into this sort of Tony Pulis, early 2000s Stoke of just launching it over, which was just really, really easy for Aston Villa to defend because we're not massive. We're not really tall, are we? And and it was just really straightforward for them. It seemed odd the way they just switched, how they were playing, having had such a good first 10 minutes and being unlucky not to score really. But it was a tough evening after that really. I think there's lots of chat about tactics and coaching staff and the manager's fault, but actually we had 18 shots, so things were happening, but we've said before, we weren't clinical enough and we weren't ruthless enough, and I think this just puts even more highlights even more this need in the summer to go out and get somebody who can take the pressure off Russo and who's going to put the ball away really on a regular basis.
Yeah, again, you touched on that about the 18 shots. So yeah, we'll get into that as well. That's part of my note. So we'll come on to that subject as well. Loads of stuff in the comments. I'll keep on putting them on screen and we'll react to a few as well. Ellie, you was as loud as anyone in the crowd. What we all thought when time was ticking on, because we was creating chances, weren't we? But we just wasn't putting them away.
No, obviously Thomas had a good few chances. And then I think Tooney had a good one as well. And then I'm actually watching it now, and they just keep giving the ball away. That's what frustrated me. Kept giving the ball away and then passing back. We need to pass forward in order to try and score. But overall, the game yesterday, I just thought I can't say we played the worst we've ever played, because we've not. But we could have done a lot better yesterday. But like I said before to myself, it's the international break as well, I think.
Yeah.
I'll always say that it's the international break. Because when they come back after international break, they're always really shaky and really seemed really tired. Especially Tuna. She literally seemed really tired yesterday. And then Ruth, I know you might touch on this, but why bring Russo off? She should have stayed on. And then Lucy Stan, I know that she's come back and everything, but I don't think she should have started yesterday. You should have got like Fuso on or Kirsty Hansen, because they need more game time. And I know I'm not saying it's all Mark's fault, because it's really not. Everyone plays a part in yesterday's. So I just think they need to stop passing the ball back and pass it forward, because it's really not helping sometimes. I've just seen there like pass back to one of the players, and then Mary she kicked it and went straight back to their player. We need to start moving it forward.
Can I just jump in? I think it's interesting what Ellie says there. I feel like teams are sort of starting to work out. If you look at the West Hams, and teams like Villa, Brighton's, those sorts of teams, they're kind of working out that if they sit in with a low block, they've got a good chance, because a draw for them is a really good result. They're playing Manchester United Football Club. A draw is a really good result for any team that's not the three above us. And what makes it more difficult is that we get the ball and then we play it really slowly. I can think barely any times this season where Mary's got the ball or the defenders have got the ball and we've played it quicker. And I don't mean just a ridiculous worldy pass, just something ludicrous, but just play the ball quicker. So if you're a team that's going to play with two banks of four and you want to sit in, it's dead easy to do that against us, I think, is what I've started to notice. Because we just play it so slowly out from the back, you then just sit in. And that kind of explains probably why we then went with the long ball. So we were bypassing all of our sort of creative, technically gifted players, because we couldn't compete with the low block. And I would worry going forwards that teams are now picking up on that. And again, that's another thing we've got to solve and quite quickly.
Yeah, I think this might be the first time, Charlotte, I actually disagree, because I don't think Villa played a low block most of the time. They definitely dropped into a defensive show, as most teams are going to do when you're playing against the likes of United, City, Chelsea. That's going to happen. Yeah. But I think the thing is, the tactic can work if it's moved. What Charlotte just said there, when you move the ball quicker, because the whole idea of you're passing it around the back is you're trying to shift the opposition out of position. You're shifting them side to side, trying to move them and trying to create that little bit of gap. But if you're doing it so slow across the back four, Villa just shift 5 yards that way, and you're never going to break through. So the only option then is to go over the top. Whereas if you're playing it across the back four a lot quicker, you can then open the gaps and then play it into midfield. And, Paul Zellum and Jackie, I don't think either of them were outstanding, but they could never get the ball in space because it's moving so slow across the back line. And, there was the long ball was actually on quite a few times. Like I said earlier, our best chance came from that. It was a long ball over to Leah. She obviously got onto it and, played it across to Martha. Obviously, we know what happened there. We had a couple of opportunities. Russo was in behind. Martha Thomas was in behind. But the ball wasn't good enough for the player to get on the end of it. It's particularly in the second half, I'm talking here. Villa kind of stepped up a little bit more. So the chances were there, but we just didn't have, I don't quite know what it is, ability or trust to play that pass. But it's got to be quicker. I don't know why. I understand the tactic enough, and I get why we do it. But, this passing it around the back, I'm not fully against that because that's how you shift teams out of position when they're defending the way Villa were. But it can't be that slow because you're never going to break the lines otherwise.
I think the first 10 minutes we kind of summed up a lot of things there. So, I do want to get into a lot of this stuff. Kind of, I agree with you regarding, passing it around, and it does need to be quicker. But, I've said a number of times on this show about why we pass. And I think me and you, Charlie, in one of our last reactions, we kind of said like two sides of it. The advantages of passing it around the back and keeping that possession and moving players out of position to actually having a bit more of a direct approach. And I think what we've seen in the last couple of games, because I think Brighton were very reminiscent as well, is our plan A is to pass it around, but we're probably not doing it as quick as we should be. But then plan B is a long ball over the top. So people in the comments are talking about plan B. I think that is the plan B. I don't think that's what he wants to do. But when passing it around isn't working, then all of a sudden 3 or 4 kind of like stray very close to being offside, sometimes are offside, and you're just hoping for a long ball over the top. The problem there is, and I did mention it on Saturday night, is the gap between the defence and the goalkeeper wide enough to actually perfect that ball over the top, because it's very often the case that the ball runs right to the goalkeeper or it's just cleared before it actually gets onto the striker. So I do get that long ball. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's what Skinner has been doing for most of the season. I think it's come quite recently. And then that brings up the question where other people have been saying on the comments and on Twitter as well. I think it's a very good question. Have we been found out? Have people figured us out now? If you pack that midfield and don't let us, get that creativity, do we have to have that plan B? And unfortunately, I think plan B is Casey Stoney's plan A, where you just kind of go wide, try and give Galton the ball and hope for the best. And I don't know if anyone wants to jump in on that one.
Can I just make a really quick one? And just off, and that comment on the screen kind of backs up as well. I don't think it was hard to hit, because if you watch the game back, I've had the unfortunate pleasure of rewatching the whole game again. I put myself through it. If you have a look, Russo had a chance in the first half. It's played over the top, her touch let her down. It kind of went further forward. Leah had one 10 minutes later, a touch let her down. Leah had another one a bit later on. Russo overhit the pass and it went too far. Second half, Martha Thomas had one touch let her down. So that was the option was there. It clearly worked to an extent. But if your touch is better and we're in behind, that's when I talk about that little difference between the kind of 8 out of 10 to the 9 and the 10 out of 10s. Those small percentage margins in these games where it's so tight. Like I said, we were saying in the ground, other teams score those opportunities. You go and watch any other team, they score those, whereas we don't seem to be able to go over the line. So it's not everyone's preferred way of playing. I don't want us to turn into, like Charlie said earlier, early 2000s Stoke, where we're just hitting it over the top every time we get the ball. But when teams come at us a little bit, like Villa did, they did step up 5-10 yards in the second half. That pass was on. I don't agree that opportunity wasn't there, because it certainly was. If you watch the game back, we had chances. They maybe not have led to shots, but like I said, a lot of the time that's because the pass wasn't good enough or the touch let them down.
I think that's what Norman said. I think the long ball was hit too hard. I think that's what it was. I think that's kind of what he was saying more than...
Yeah, sorry, I misread that one.
No, it's okay. But I think we were on the same wavelength there. I do. Got TJ saying that we need a plan C. I mean, it's a bit late now, because I'm kind of thinking that Champions League is over. That's just me. We can still pick up 6 points. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure we'll go for that. And it would be great to go to Chelsea just to spoil their party. And then if we do get 6 points, you never know. Things could happen at Reading and City. But you know, I'm already thinking now, okay, well, how are we going to change this? Because I don't want Skinner to change too much of what he's done this season. I think he's been fantastic in the way he's taught his players to play something a bit more differently, a bit more intelligently. But I do agree, if that way's not working, then we do need a plan B or a plan C, as TJ says. So get in the comments and kind of tell us, like, you know, what would you kind of do differently? Would you go back to more like wing play where you're giving the ball to Leah and Hudson, where you're actually dribbling, you know, like getting the ball on the halfway line and taking the players on that way, as opposed to a long ball over the top? I really want plan A to work because we've seen it work. You know, we've seen it in the build up to Christmas and all over Christmas. So I've got nothing wrong with plan A. But eventually, if we do get caught out or if plan A is not working, then we need, I think, a better plan B. Let's have a look at what else we've got here. We've got Lanzo saying, what do you think of Mark's plan B if his initial approach isn't working? Does someone want to jump in on that? I mean, what's everybody else's thoughts on plan B? Is that, because for me, plan B is a long ball out top. I don't think that's his first choice. I know, Charlie, you were saying in the stadium, that's the way he's wanting to play. I think it was because of plan A wasn't working, but can you see like 2 or 3 different types of play here? Because I can only see 2.
I don't think there's any issue with any tactic you choose to play, whether it's slow build up, whether it's tiki-taka, whether it's width, whether it's the ball over the top. I think the big thing is getting the personnel right for whatever style it is you're after playing. So if we're wanting to play the ball out wide over the top to the quick wingers, we need the quick wingers on the pitch.
Cool.
And I think there was lots of shouts for Hansen yesterday to come on for when that's what we were looking for. That's the biggest thing I find odd sometimes. Like there's no massive issue if you want to play the ball over the top and you play it well, not a problem. But sometimes it just looks like the personnel isn't quite right, and sometimes it looks like the right players are available on the bench. So perhaps that's something that needs looking at. I feel like like you said, it's no issue for plan B if that's what we need to do at the moment. But again, I think that came too early. Like I've said, we had 10, 15 minutes of really good football. We just unfortunately didn't score from it. And then it changed immediately. It's like, well, that's not worked immediately. Let's just do this now. And actually, we caused Villa loads and loads of issues that first 10, 15 minutes. We were just missing the goal. So, yeah, you need a plan B, you need a plan C, you need to make the right subs, you need to do all these things. But it just seemed to change on a dime for me far too quickly. And as soon as that change in strategy happened, it just seemed to be that was it. That's what we were doing. We weren't going to do the things that were working in the first 10 to 15 minutes. It just felt like a really odd game to watch when you were there. Just couldn't really work out. I think John had the unfortunate job of standing next to me for the second game in a row. I don't know about anyone else. I just couldn't quite work out what was going on. Like I couldn't work out what we were trying to what the approach was. And I think that's maybe what people found frustrating. It was trying to work out really what is it we're trying to do here, if that makes sense. It probably sounds like a bit of a wishy-washy answer, but that's because I couldn't really work out what was going on, like what we were trying to do, what the aim was. I don't know. It just seemed a little bit all over the place, and it might. I think someone put about the players just looked hamstrung by the pressure, and that might have been it a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is third year potentially of fourth. It becomes a bit of a rite of passage, doesn't it? And maybe they felt that a little bit. I don't know. Sorry, that was just what.
No. I think everyone's feeling the same kind of things. We all kind of put our own spin on it. I've left that comment on screen. Maybe Ellie can just answer that question. Do you think Man City moving into third ahead of the game affected us?
Yeah, I think so. I think it played a massive part, on the confidence as well. Because then they'd think if we did lose this game then of course they'll go third. Are they third now then or not? I don't think they are.
We got that point, didn't we? So I think because we got that point, we've gone back ahead of them on goal average, have we?
Yeah, but City's got such easy games now. Come on, you can't see them losing these games. So, I think it played a massive part in the confidence and the mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because now, like, you know, the next game we've got, and we know that Champions League might be gone. Maybe they work harder because Champions League gone. But then I still think it's going to affect them in the next games we've got. Because it's going to have a downhill on them all. But of course, it's going to be like, oh, like, we failed all, like, the fans and all that because they want Champions League. But I just think, yeah, we just makes them more miserable now, doesn't it, really? Going into the next games.
Do you think potentially now, with the players possibly thinking like us, you know, they might not admit it, but you know, Champions League's possibly gone. Do you think that could potentially work in our favour now? The pressure's off them, and you know, we could potentially have a bit of fun out there and just do something slightly different where we can end up scoring a few goals. Can you see that potentially working for us, Ellie?
Yeah, I can, because do you know when we had the cups and everything? After that, when we was out the cups, I thought we were really confident then.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like, oh yeah, we'll try and go for Champions League, getting third spot. And they was really confident then. All the games after, like, when we took out the cups. So, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think it'll be like the pressure off them now. So, like you said, they can just go out there and have a bit of fun and please us fans just a little bit more. Even if Champions League is gone.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing to lose now. There's nothing to lose.
Yeah,
and the worst thing that could happen is they go out with a whimper. So I think they've just got to. I just say go for it. I say gung ho setting on Football Manager, and just give it all, because they need to at least go out fighting, and that's something we've usually always said about them, isn't it? The fact that they'll put up a fight, they'll leave everything out there, and they still did that yesterday. To be fair, just wasn't good enough. It just wasn't enough on the day. But they can't go out with a whimper. We can't go into the summer, just like leaving no trace. We've at least got to take it to the last game of the season. We've got to. Our players deserve that, and the fans deserve that. So they've just got to go out fighting, even if they're not going to get it in the end.
I want to talk about our subs in a bit, but I do just want to carry this conversation on a little bit in regards to like the style of play. So there's a couple of questions I want to ask. Well, there's one question I want to ask on that one, and then there's a conversation that you guys was having at half time as well that I want to mention on this on this show. So first of all, the last one, I'll just bring it back to yourself, Connor. If we had carried on playing that possession-based football where the fans get like a bit frustrated about passing it around the back, and you know, a bit like that we were at Brighton, is that such a bad thing, or would you kind of want to still have seen that because that's still Skinner's style, that's the way that we've been playing all season? Or would you have been a bit more frustrated like we are now, where we've tried to do something a bit different, a bit more direct, which is kind of what we've been asking for, but in maybe a different way? I guess what I'm asking, like, you know, like, was it like a bit of a lose-lose situation there, unless if obviously we scored the goal, or what are your thoughts on that?
The thing is, he's got to stick to his way of playing. The thing is, people assume that you've got one way of playing. He doesn't. He'll have multiple in a game. People said it annoys me a little bit when people talk about tactics. People don't realize tactics change in a game. Just because it's not obvious to you, there's subtle changes that happen every 5-10 minutes in a game. And the way I said this earlier, you know, Villa didn't play a low block. They didn't stick everyone behind the ball. They did play, you know, it was a kind of like a. I think Stanyard said, he's just in his comments, just reminded me of his tweet. It was like a mid-low block almost. Yeah. You know, they weren't fully sat back, but like I said, the way you bring them out is passing it around quick to bring players out of position, but we didn't do that. So, yeah, the possession base worked. And same with the long ball, it can work. And I was just looking then, you know, I'm not massive on XG. I can't stand it a lot of the time. But we had the same XGs we've had all season. Expected goals, if people don't know what that is, we expected to score 2 goals in that game. We've had that nearly every single game this season, apart when we've played the top 3. So what's different in this one? We didn't take our chances. That's all it is. We created this. When we beat Villa 5-0, we had an XG of 2.7, and this one we had 2.0. We beat them 5 last time and didn't score a single goal this time. The difference is we didn't take our chance this time. So what I'm saying is the tactic clearly worked to an extent. We clearly got those golden opportunities, because that's what XG is calculated by, the expected goal of the chance creation. So we clearly got into positions, we're just not taking them. And like I said, that's the difference. So I don't think there's any issue with us. And it's not passing it around the back because, yes, essentially that is what you're doing. But like I said, you're trying to draw players out.
Yeah.
You're trying to, like I said, move one in the middle. You're trying to bring, like, let's say, Lehman out of position. And then you can go into that space where she's just left. Then you go into that position and you do the same in midfield. You pass it along, get somebody to move out, and you go again. Otherwise, like I said, what's your only option? It's 10v10 outfield. If everyone can mark everyone, you're not going to get through. You've got to bring somebody out somewhere. And the only way of doing that is moving the ball quick in triangles and moving it around them.
Yeah. It's kind of what we were saying, like at the Brighton game as well. Like, we're looking at the ball, like in the defensive area, like, okay, what's going to happen? But sometimes we don't actually look at the strikers, how they're moving. So if the ball's on, then obviously great, a quick ball over the top. But if the players ahead of the ball aren't moving, then what's the players going to do? That's why very often the ball does go backwards as well. So it's all stuff that we spoke about in previous podcasts. So I don't want to keep on going over it, but I do agree. And unfortunately, it didn't quite work out. But Charlie, there was a conversation that I think kind of started it and asked you the question at half time, saying, how would you, if you were Skinner there at half time, what would you say to the players?
Yeah.
Would you? It's a great question. Would you kind of tell them, kind of like go for a relaxing approach, saying, calm down, play your game, or would you lay into them and tell them, look, this isn't good enough. You're making the wrong decisions. So let's just have a quick chat about that one now. I don't think there's a right or wrong way. Go on.
Bearing in mind, everyone watching, Connor asked me this question when I was like about to burst. I think so. At the time, I was like, he needs to go and tell them, needs to do it quicker, needs to do this, that, and the other, acting like I'm a know-it-all. Like there's a reason I'm not coaching Man United, and he is. But in hindsight, I think a bit of both. I think it is important. It's a critical game. It's a critical point in the season. And again, this is as someone who doesn't coach a football team, I would think you probably wouldn't go in there and go, oh, it's all fine, don't worry about it. But you also wouldn't go in and absolutely rip them to shreds. You just go in and be assertive and say, this isn't working. We need to do this better because this positive outcome will happen as a result. So neither extreme. I would have expected him to go in down the middle. But it's lucky I'm not a football coach because I'd be a horrendous one, like Neil Warnock on steroids. It'd be awful. But I think it's important. You can't pretend it's not, because it is. But yeah, I don't know what Connor didn't tell me what he'd do actually. He just threw that little grenade in there for me just over half time, and then left me with it. So Connor, what would you do?
If Steve's watching, I did the same to him as well. I was kind of going around just asking people around me just to get a feel. It's a real tough one, isn't it? Because like I said earlier, I think maybe the pressure did get to them a little bit. So that is where man management or player management comes into it, because he knows the players better than any of us. He's with them day in, day out. He'll know which player. And Fergie was great at this. He knew what players could react to the hairdryer treatment, as it became known, and which players needed an arm around the shoulder and like, come on. That's where Skinner needs to know who can take, this isn't good enough. Like, do you want it or not? And some players may need to, right, come on, let's have a, sit down and it's fine. Take the pressure off. You know what you can do kind of thing. Because players react differently in those situations. So there's no correct answer, because he's got to, like I say, he's got to do it differently for each player, because each player will react differently to it.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of positives. Like you say, we've created enough chances. Was it 18 shots, was it? And then 6 on target. Was that correct? Something like that. So there's a lot of positives. Obviously, half time would be just, for example, half that. So the work created is just some of the decision making at the end, wasn't it? So obviously, he could have just gone there and just given them that coaching and bit of guidance, just to say, look, when you're in this position again, maybe let's try this or do this. I don't think it would have laid into them as such, but I do think the players need to be aware that, come on, these are some of your mistakes as well. And that kind of brings us on to substitutes then. So there's a lot of love in the comments for Skinner, by the way. There's not too many negative stuff, which is great to see. This conversation may take a bit of a turn, because we want to talk a bit about Russo and some of the substitutes here. I've got a feeling that I'm going to be defending Martha Thomas now for the next 15-20 minutes. because I think I'm heavily outvoted here. But let's start off with yourself, El. You know, you did mention at the start Russo shouldn't have come on because I come off. I think 95% of the fan base probably agree with you. What were your thoughts on the substitutions as a whole, El?
Well, I thought, Russo shouldn't come off because she had a pretty good game. She came out, didn't she come off for Borisa or something? Was it Borisa?
A double substituted at one point. I can't remember that.
Yeah.
It was a sub at the start. Do you have a quick look at that, Connor? Because you're
Stanley and Borisa came on for Jackie and Russo.
Yeah, Russo should have come off. I was annoyed when she did because she actually tried to give us the chances. So, no, I don't think she should have come off. And then who was on the bench? Kirsty and Ivana. They should have had a chance yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
They really should. I said this before. Lucy Stanley, I know she's back, and I know she's back from injury. But yesterday's game, maybe Skinner should have weaned her back in to the squad. Like he's doing with Diane. She was on the bench yesterday all game. So I thought it would have been a good chance to see Kirsty and Ivana coming on yesterday. I was a bit mad at that. Because them two need game time. We all know they do. So I'm just frustrated that Russo came off. I'm so frustrated at that, but
Barry's in the comments. Barry was standing right next to us as well, and on paper, when you take off your top goal scorer and put on a midfielder, it looks bad, doesn't it? But you know what I'm like. I'm always trying to play devil's advocate on it. But we've played games in the past where we played five in midfield and we ended up playing. I'm sure it was actually we won that game, and people were saying it's the best that we played all season. Admittedly, I think
the 5-0 against Villa was with five midfielders.
Yeah, and I got no problem with that because throughout the game, transitions happen, and you're not literally just going to be 4-5-1. So I got no problem with that as such. Stanley coming on, you know, you've got an experienced head there. You've probably got someone who may not actually get the goals, but you know, they might spot a pass, or she might be a better passer and mover than some of the players. I don't know what the reason is why she came on, but I do agree. I would have preferred to have seen Hansen or Fuso, someone who could actually pick up the ball and drive with it, because I don't think we saw enough of that. But that was just obviously, it's easy to say that after we don't score, but I was kind of wanted to see that happen as well. Kind of, where do you sit with the Stanley coming on first before we talk about Russo? Can you kind of see that side of it, or?
I think, to be honest, the only reason I think she came on is experience more than anything. Purely because, like I said, we were panicking. The last kind of, pretty much the whole of the second half, like we seemed to panic. So I can see why he brought experience on, because we were giving the ball away a hell of a lot. I've just put in our private chat, you know, only two players, well, three if you include Mary Earps, but I'd be worried if she didn't, but only two players had higher than 80% pass accuracy. That is really poor when you've got most of your backline that are passing between each other. So that'll improve your accuracy. Same with the midfield. The fact that only two players got above, I think it was Hannah and Hayley, I think. I'll double check that one a second. But yeah, so just experience and someone who can keep the ball. I don't get it for Russo. There's rumours that she had a bit of a knock or something. I'm not quite sure. I've not seen anything more.
Yeah, because she was down, I think, in the first half. Yeah.
Yeah, so if that was the case, I can kind of see why, but it's really strange. I agree with what Ellie said. When you need a goal, you don't take your striker off.
Well, I'm going to set Charlie off on one now, and I think Charlie was speaking for the whole of the fan base. Well, 95% of the fan base at least. And I've left that comment on screen, and I know John Commode, I've been messaging him throughout the day as well. He's fully on your side, Charlie. You know, he doesn't think Russo should have been subbed off, and I get this. I mean, like I say, on paper again, taking Russo off doesn't make sense. You're chasing a goal and you take off your top goal scorer. I'm just going to put a couple of things out there and we just go back and forth and whatever. I agree with that. Russo's more likely to get a goal than maybe anybody else if she's got an opportunity. But one, she didn't really have many opportunities. It was Martha that was getting the opportunities. So I can kind of see why Skinner would have kept Thomas on, because she was the one that was either creating the opportunities or creating the gaps or creating the movement. So it was Martha that was getting the chances. Admittedly, she wasn't taking them, so I'm not defending Martha on that sense. So I kind of understand in that, why Russo will be subbed off then, because she was actually doing too much in front of the goal. But then on the flip, and the second point would be she was working extremely hard to hold up the ball, and for the last 2 or 3 games now, she's been massively out of breath after 60 minutes. So just because she's your top goal scorer, if she's not fit or if she has took a knock, there's got to be a limit to where you do take off your top goal scorer. To me, Russo didn't look like scoring at all. At least Martha Thomas was actually kind of in them positions. So that's how I would justify it. Obviously, everyone knows that I'll justify most things when Skinner's up against it. But I know I'm in the minority there. But Charlie, just what's your thoughts on everything that you saw and read in the last 24 hours?
I think if obviously if she's injured, if she's got a niggle, you take her off, because the last thing we want is for her to sort of get something worse. I just think that I think if you're the opposition, she's our best player, in my opinion. I think if she's coming off the pitch, that's a real boost for the opposition. Regardless of if you think she's getting lots of chances or not, the fact is she's going to occupy that back line. She's going to occupy those 2 centre backs. But she was isolated. I feel like she was isolated a lot of the time, and she had a thankless task of just chasing the football over the top all the time, which might explain why she was knackered. But I feel like, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the last 2 or 3 games she's come off early.
Yeah.
Like there must be something in that.
I think she's working so hard. Sorry, I'll let you come back in, but yeah, just on that.
Fine.
We saw her get subbed off at the Leeds Sports Village, and obviously she's right in front of us as she walks up the steps, and she's panting, and it's not because of lack of fitness potentially, it's because she is working so hard up there by herself. We see her out wide, we see her in the centre, we see her doing everything she could possibly do. Go on, Charlie.
If that's the case, what about playing 2 up there? So she's not doing everything by herself. It could have been the time, I don't know, perhaps to play 2 up top and bring on another winger, go 4-4-2, get Kirsty Hansen on. Probably means you're going to have to take off probably Jackie, even though people wouldn't necessarily like it. And then you play 2 up top and you've got 2 actual wingers on. That might have helped the situation. I don't know. There'll be a justification, like Mark and Martin and whoever else won't be just plucking things out of thin air and going, oh, hand in the magic hat, right? This is what we're going to do now. They'll be thinking about it. But we're just seeing the emotional side of it, aren't we? We're just thinking win the football game. But I don't know. We will never know the justification. She's our top goal scorer. She frightens opposition defences. We've said that all season. And she can make something happen in an instant. Like we saw that at the Everton game at Old Trafford, where we were having a tough time, and then she scores a header out of nowhere that she has no right to score, really. And it's just a lift for the opposition. But yeah, I wouldn't have brought her off. I would have persevered. I would have kept her on regardless, unless she's injured. Obviously, it's ludicrous to keep her on if she is.
It's an interesting point, because I've just had a look at our last few games. She's come off at the 70th minute, obviously yesterday, Brighton, West Ham, Reading, and the 67th at City in the Cup.
Just so glad I've not made that up. Thank you. Good.
in our last 7 games, she's out of 5 of them, she's come off after 70 minutes, so there must be a reason. Now, I said yesterday, she reminds me a little bit of Ronaldo in the sense of it's almost like she gets bored of waiting for the ball half the time, because she comes so deep or she goes so far out wide, and she'll get the ball out there or she'll get the ball in midfield. We'll play the ball forward because she's one of the best players in the league at holding on to the ball. Her low centre of gravity that she seems to have, and the turn on the ball. So she'll then spread it out wide. Well, that's great. Well, where's your striker now? You've got nobody then up front. So we need somebody else in the middle that can do that and start dictating and play from further deep. Because I just think, I don't know what it is. I do think there's a slight fitness thing there. It's not just her, by the way. I think there's a few players that I don't think can go flat out for a full 90 minutes. But yeah, it's an interesting stat, the fact that she keeps coming off on the 70. And I'm pretty sure if one of us did that, going back through the whole season, I think you'd notice a pattern that she comes off 20 minutes before the end of the game. So yeah,
could it be something to do with the type of injury that she had? I don't know. Maybe they're still being conscious of that.
potentially. But if that's the case, I wouldn't play her at all until she's fully fit, and then she can play a full 90. But it's a shame because like you said, she's our top scorer. She's been one of our best players this season. It's just. It's tough like that, and I do agree with what you're saying though, John. It's not like she was getting the chances. But I think part of that is because she just got so bored. We're never going to know. We're speculating it, but I just think she gets so bored of waiting for it half the time. She's making these runs, and I said, watch the game back. She makes some good runs, but the ball then doesn't come to her. And then when she doesn't make the run, then they hit the ball, and it's that communication between the back line and the front line. And so she comes so deep. Like I said, picks up the ball in midfield. That's great. She can turn and beat a player, but then what? You've only
runners,
got
don't you? You need someone who's running on.
Well, I would like to see more of that, actually. I would like to see more of when Stanley Forth did come on, she picked up the ball on like the right-hand side, almost playing like right wing, but obviously facing more inwards as opposed to running down the line. And I was just waiting for a midfielder just to make a run past her and just play the ball into like behind the back of the defenders and just someone just run onto it. But we just never kind of saw any of that. And I think that's the kind of play that, go back to the first topic, I think that's the kind of play that Skinner wants to play, where you got runners running into space.
It happened once. Do you remember? Because I said it was that chance where I said it would have been our goal of the season, where Jackie did the little flick behind her. Martha then flicked into Tooney to Russo. Russo played the ball over to Galton, and it was just over hit, slightly. It just took Leah too far out wide, and then it laid off to Tooney, and she had the shot straight down the middle. But that's what you're saying there. Russo coming a little bit deeper and hit it. Harry Kane, actually, is the prime example. Harry Kane does it for Spurs all the time. Comes deep, Son and Lucas Moura, whoever it is, making the runs. So maybe that's the kind of style that he's got for Russo, coming a little bit deeper and play, because she's got a wicked pass. We saw it at Reading, and if that would have come off yesterday, that, like I said, would have been one of our goals of the season.
Yeah, well, it's like you said, kind of. You have more than just one passage play. Russo could be up top, and there could be like 3 or 4 different scenarios how to get the ball to her. But you have to kind of look around, and I think that's kind of what slows us down. So when we're playing the ball around the back, or when we are playing the ball quite slow, it might be because they're trying to figure out, okay, which ball are we going to play here? What kind of play are we going to play? Are we going to wait for Russo to come to to like a false 9 kind of role and see if anyone runs behind, or are we going to wait for Russo to kind of run over the behind the back of the defenders? I think there's just a lot of, at the moment, not undecisiveness, but it's just not as fluid. But when it was fluid, it was absolutely brilliant. That was an opportunity, and we saw that fluidity before Christmas, so we know it's there. Ellie, I'm going to ask everyone this question, but I'll start off with yourself. And me and Connor was kind of talking about it on the way home yesterday in the car, so hoping I'll put you on the spot here, Connor, but I'll back you up. I agree with you. Do you think that there's players in our team that might be just a little bit overhyped in our fan base? Do we think that some of our players are, maybe not as good as we make out? So we don't need to necessarily name names as such, but again, we're 4th in the league for the 3rd season on trot. We expect some of these players to create something in the final third. I think it's down to the manager to get us to that final third, and then it's up to the players to kind of do something special. That's why we pay extra money for them, or that's why we give them the extra bit of wages. Would you put any of this down to the players not actually being as good as maybe we hope that they are?
Well, yeah, obviously, I think in the comments, I'm a massive fan of Tooney as well, but yesterday she just wasn't her best yesterday. Don't get me wrong, she's so good, I know, but yesterday she wasn't good, and obviously there is that obvious few that I think, I don't know, they just seem, people think they're too good, but they're actually not. Obviously, I don't want to name anyone because then I get criticised. Yeah.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, I do know a few, on the bench as well, that people think they're really good when actually they're not, because they're not above our average players like Russo and all that. So I'd be happy to name him, but can't, because I am not getting criticised from it. So
no, it's fine. It's fine. I understand absolutely.
I
but
think yes, some of some on the benches, and maybe so the Sophie Bagley as well. Yeah, she's good. She's good, but I think I'll see more of her as well.
Okay. I think it's a fair conversation to have. We'll probably have it at the end of the season. We will be honest, and I'm not calling anybody out on this particular game. But I think it's a genuine conversation, because you look at our players and you compare them to City, Chelsea, Arsenal. Everyone will have their own opinions on it, but we are fourth again. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we're just not as good as we think that we are. Maybe.
No. And the thing is, as fans, you're going to be biased towards your own players. You're going to say that every player we've got is the best in the world because that's just what we do, right? So, but I do think there is an element that we think maybe that some of the players in our squad are better than we think we are in certain areas. I think when you take a step back and you look at, and I don't like doing this as a United fan, and it pains me because I wish we had the best squad in the world right now, but let's be realistic, we don't. I think if you look at squad for squad, I think we're a little bit behind. We have players that on a certain day when they play 110% can maybe match these teams, but when you look over a season, we're close, but I think there's some players that I think are a little bit overhyped by our own fans to the point where we've believed it because we have this season and we're rightly where we are. But I think there's some players that I think you look at and think, would they get in some of these other sides? Probably not. So, that's all I'm saying. Like I said, none of these players are bad players. I just don't think maybe they're the levels that we think some of them are. Like I said, not all of them. We've got some world-class players in our team. And that's why I say we're not far away. We are very close. But getting Champions League, and like I said, in some ways, I think I've seen this conversation a lot on Twitter. It maybe is a good thing that we have just one more summer to properly build a squad ready for the Champions League. Because I think if that squad goes into the Champions League now, we're not ready for it, I don't think. I don't think we've got the belief and that little bit of quality in these games. We saw Chelsea yesterday, and I hate doing this, like I said. Down to 10 players, still went on and won 3-1 away at Spurs. That's what they do. They've got the players to do that. We've seen this all season. We don't kill off games. We don't have that little bit of composure and quality in front of goals. So, I think that's what I said. Maybe getting Champions League is going to be a deterrent for some players. It's going to be off-putting that we don't have it potentially. But I do think that we maybe need this summer to attract just a couple more. If we can get some then it goes back to the trust in the people above Skinner and backing him, because he'll have a list of players that he wants. Is he going to get that list? January was a good window to an extent, but it was very rushed. It was very last minute, and I think we only got some of those players because of the injuries we had at the time. Would we have signed all those players if we didn't have the injuries? So I think we need this summer to get some extra bit of quality in. Like I said, none of these players are bad players, but maybe they're not quite the kind of European world-class level that maybe we think some of them are.
Do you think now some of the players will go because they know that we might not get Champions League now?
I think yes, and I'm interested to hear everyone else's things. I think yes, but is that a bad thing? And I hate saying that because I love all these players, but maybe it's not a bad thing because, like I tweeted yesterday, this is not Mark Skinner's squad. This is still Casey Stoney's squad. So yes, like I said, there's some world-class players in there, but he needs his own players. Every manager wants their own players and players that they can trust. So I think some will leave, and I think some fans are going to be very heartbroken in the summer. I've said this all season. I think there's going to be a certain one that will leave, and it's going to be very tough for a lot of fans to take. But like I said, is it going to be a bad thing if it improves the squad? Who knows?
Before we ask Charlie her opinion on that, because she's not getting out of this one, considering she stitched me up before the start of the show. But I will say, even if we did have the same squad next season, not the full squad, obviously there's going to be changes. I do think that these players can actually still get to that next level. But I guess what I'm saying is at this moment in time, because they haven't played enough with each other, because they're having this new style of play, because I still think that they still need to learn more. I'm not saying they can't get there, but I just think at the moment, maybe we just expected a little bit too much too soon of them, maybe. Not all of them. Maybe just certain ones who I thought might have come in and kind of, set the world alight, and it's not really happened, I guess. So I guess that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. But Charlie, do you want to kind of finish up on this subject before we move on?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think we're the fourth best. We've got the fourth best playing squad in the WSL.
Mhm.
That's what we've got. You look at the benches of the three teams above us, and they've basically got 2 starting 11s. I'd say pretty much across the board. I think I've said a couple of shows ago. I think we're hamstrung by the injuries in defence. I think the players that have come in have done a sterling job. It's been really tough for them. It's not like we're leaking goals, but I think a really strong, confident back line has a massive impact on what's happening in front of it. I think this summer is critical. I think what happens this summer tells us about the trajectory of the club, and what the people who own the club want from it. Really, I think it will say a lot, because we need to invest, and properly. Man United women make a profit. They make money for Manchester United, the business. So I think they need to see some of the rewards of that in player contracts. And I think they're still Man United. You still have the romanticism in women's football that players want to play for the club they support. I think Mary Earp's podcast 18 months ago on the United official podcast, she said that when she went to, was it Wolfsburg she went to? Yeah, it was Wolfsburg, wasn't it? She said every single one of those players supported Man United. Best women's players in the world, they all support Man United. So there's players that will come, but we're just going to have to pay for them. Because I know, like, you look at Sam Kerr, I think she's on 6 figures a year, which is a lot in the women's game. But I also think, I was saying to Connor, we're missing experience. And I don't mean players in their 30s. Normally when you say that, people think you mean older players. I mean, we miss players who've got the wherewithal and who've been through having to just grind things out, get those wins, force yourself over the finish line. We haven't got players that have ever done that. Not really. But obviously Jackie, I think Jackie won the Euros, didn't she? But with a completely different side. We haven't got any players that have really, I don't think we've got any players that have won massive trophies or achieved great things from a football point of view, because they're all so young, really. So I think that's something we need to look at. We need winners in. We need players who are going to go on that pitch and take the game by the scruff of the neck. And when things aren't going well, a bit like not a Roy Keane character, 2-footing everyone, but you know what I mean. That sort of character. And I don't think we have to. This isn't about who the captain or the vice captain. You need loads of people on that pitch who can boss everyone around, who can force everyone over the line. And we're just missing that side of things. So it'll be interesting. I think if we just went out this summer and bought 3 new up and coming players, I would still worry we'll be in the same position.
Fair point. Yeah.
At the end of the year, we need players who know how to win and know how to grind these things out. That's what other teams have. Yeah, and we're too nice. We're still too nice. I've said this before. We're too nice. We need to go into tackles. We need to rough teams up, because you get away with it a little bit in the women's game. So it's those little bits and pieces for me that are missing.
Yeah, 100%. I've just done a little fact check as well. So when last season, when we lost to Reading at home, obviously most people see that as the defining moment. 11 out of the 17 in that squad still were in the matchday squad yesterday. So you're looking at that team there, and this backs up what Charlie's saying. We don't have anyone who's necessarily... We've got players that have been here before, but they've had a bad experience of being here before. We've got nobody who's got over the line. We need players that have qualified, have done it, more of them. Like I said, more experience, and I agree with what Charlie's saying. Experience isn't just buying old players for the sake of buying old players. It's getting players in that have been there and done it, but across the squad as well. Because like I said, it's great that we've kept a lot of these players. But like I said earlier, this is still Casey's squad. It's still most of the same squad that was here last season, and it looks like it's going to be a very similar outcome. So it's tough. It's exactly what Charlie said. Do the people above Skinner want to back this women's team? And I'm going into a whole other conversation here, so I'm going to make this very brief. But I worry slightly that the fact that the men's team needs a full overhaul as well. They've just changed management. Is that going to affect the women's operations as well? It shouldn't. It really shouldn't. But is the focus going to be more on that side to rebuild that squad? I don't know. But yeah, that's it's an interesting point. Like I said, it's a lot of these players have been here before, but like I said, have had a bad experience before. We need to get more in that have had positive experiences of doing this.
Yeah, I thoroughly agree with that one, definitely. We have got time to give a player of the match, and I think, there's going to be some fans out there thinking, oh, really, we just lost. Well, feels like a loss, couldn't score, but I do think there's some good performances out there. You don't create 18 chances and keep a clean sheet, and Elle's gone. She doesn't want to give one.
She didn't want to give one.
She's gone. I'm sure this happened to her last time, isn't it? So yeah, maybe just think of one or two who did stand out for you. Let me just bring Elle back in.
Sorry, I clicked off it by accident. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's all right. It's a good job the whole stream didn't go down, Ellie. I would have had to redo it all over again. Connor, anyone kind of stand out for yourself?
Crikey. Lanzo just mentioned who my overall would have been, and that's Maz. Unfortunately, she plays for Villa. So, I can't pick her. Crikey. From a United point of view, do you know what? I don't actually know. Nobody got above a 7 for me. So I think maybe Honor, because I don't think she made a mistake. I don't remember her making that many mistakes. Her passing was a little bit off, but the chances in the second half were coming down her side. There was the composure on that side, particularly when Stanley went out there as well. And there was a couple of good chances that came from her right-hand side as well. So, yeah, maybe Honor, just because she wasn't as involved in terms of mistake making. I don't remember her doing that much, but yeah, I don't think there's anyone else. Like I said, Earps didn't really get tested. The back line was pretty average. Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Honor because I don't think anyone else really had an outstanding game.
Yeah. I know it's a tough one this week, Charlie. I really do. But anyone that you want to shout out?
Probably, if we try and go for someone different, I think I have been thinking about this. I think I've kind of stole my pick. I think who did an all right job? Like, I think Hannah did an all right job. Mm-hmm. Hannah did okay. She kept them quiet down the left-hand side. Everyone just did an all right job. I don't. Yeah, let's go on her because she hustled. She tried to make things happen, didn't she? She kept Lehman fairly quiet. So yeah, let's go for her. Connor's charmed me.
This one's mine. I thought Hayley done okay. I don't think anyone was outstanding, but I thought, I don't think she made too many mistakes there, and I think, she just done a solid job.
The defence were all right, to be fair. Like, the defence didn't concede. I think someone's just said that, yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't have many chances.
I think it would have been Hayley, but I think for me, her passing was a bit off. I think both of them, I think her and Maria, the long ball, I don't think was on. For those two, they just didn't seem to get it to work. So, yeah I can see why. Defensively, she did all right, but I just don't think the passing was quite there.
Ellie, we'll finish the show with yourself. Have you got a player of the match?
Well, I was going to say Leah, because she did some good deliveries into the box, I must say.
Okay, yeah.
It's between her or Martha. Because Martha even had some good chances. Other than that, I think everyone was just all right, like Charlie said. It was all just average, really.
So we've got 2 games left. Connor, what are your thoughts? Can we get? Well, I'll tell you what I would like, and I was going to text a few people this, and I might have even mentioned it. It would be nice to actually go to Chelsea if we are out of it, which it looks like that we probably are now. But if we are out of it would still be nice to get to Chelsea, win them so they don't win the title. So we've still got something to go for there to kind of ruin their party a little bit. That's not a bad thing to cheer for on the last game of the season. But of course, it does mean that we'll be 4th. But what are you thinking now for this last couple of games?
Yeah, I mean, I've said for ages, as long as it goes down to the last day, I'll be content with that because it shows that we've again got it to the last day, and it's not in our hands anymore. But at least if we go there, because like I said, you never know. If we can, let's say City win the next, how many have they got before that? 3, haven't they? And they got 4 games left still. Yeah, say they win the next 3, Brighton, Birmingham, and no, sorry, they've got 2 left before that. Let's say they win Brighton, Birmingham. They'll go and we beat West Ham. They'll be 2 ahead of us going into that Chelsea game. Let's say Reading score, and we're beating Chelsea at the time. Can you imagine the atmosphere in that little away section? Seeing that City have gone behind and we're winning, then we're back in 3rd. So it could happen, But I'm not too sure. As long as it goes down to the last day, I'll take that. Like Charlie said earlier, I think that we don't want to go out on a whimper. If we go lose to West Ham at the weekend and then get battered by Chelsea, we don't want to see that. Let's show the good season that these girls have had. And go out on a high at least.
I do think we'll be massively up for it. I do, because it's obviously our last home game, and then how can you not be up for the away day at Chelsea, last game of the season? So I definitely think the players and managers will be up for it, and I think Skinner would have been up for against Villa as well, obviously being that area of the country. So yeah, I think it's disappointing all in all. Obviously, we've been pushing for this since the start of the season. We always thought that I think everyone on this panel right now thought that top 3 was possible, but unlikely, but possible, all the way through the season. And it's just a shame that, that 0-0 kind of deflated us on the way home there. But
we're going to get it. We're going to get it. I'm putting it out there. Right, Birmingham winning. Birmingham going to win against City.
Yeah.
We're going to win. We're going to win both games.
Yeah.
Brighton, Hope Powell's going to do us a favour.
Yeah.
I'm making myself a meme here, aren't I?
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah.
This won't age well.
And we've got Chelsea fans in the comments, so they'll probably click it. But yeah.
Yeah. We're going to do it. You've got to believe it. We've got to believe it.
I still believe we can get 6 points. I do believe that. I'm not saying that and that sounds mental after we just drew 0-0 against Villa. But I do think that on an individual game, we can definitely do something.
Birmingham are going to go unbeaten. They're going to stay up. Leicester are going to go down.
Whoa!
Man United are going to get 3rd.
Wow.
Who was it that tweeted us earlier saying Charlie makes really good points? Might want to rephrase that.
Can I just add one thing as well? Do you know on the next home game, the attendance? I just don't want that dropping now, because they know that we might not get Champions League. Like I put it on Twitter before, so I hope it doesn't go down. Then it already has done.
That's a great point. I mean, it's our last home game. Everyone who's turned up throughout this season, everyone needs to come back again. It needs to be the biggest attendance that we've had. It's the last home game of the season, and you're absolutely right. I think we need to be there for that last game. If we've been there all season, we should be there for that last game, shouldn't we? So, yeah, absolutely right, Ellie. Yeah, and are you going on Wednesday to watch the Devs play?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Keep an eye open for the shows throughout this week. We haven't quite confirmed because we've got 1 or 2 shows that's potentially in the pipeline, but I don't want to say just yet, just in case it doesn't happen. However, keep your eye on our Twitter. Keep subscribed, because we've got a bit of a change in our schedule this week. So keep your eyes open for that one. And thank you to everybody in the comments as well. It's been really busy. Loads of people watching live. Charlie, thank you for coming on. If somebody wants to get hold of you on Twitter or anywhere like that, how can they go about doing it?
Just use that at there, and I'll be ready and waiting.
Awesome. Ellie, I'm guessing yours is on screen as well. Is that?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I put it on today.
Yeah, Ellie_MUWFC, brilliant, mate. And Connor, if anyone wants to give you a bit of banter on Twitter.
Yeah, come over and just tweet me some abuse. I quite like quite like that. No, but yeah, if you want to follow me, it's right there.
And on the main account, the All United main account, we Connor's does a lot of shows on there as well with the men's team content as well. So if you want to give us even more grief for our men's team, feel free to come across onto there. Been a good show under circumstances, guys. Thank you very much for joining us, and we shall see you again soon.